Hi, my lovely viewing friends. And yes, we have got an extra video this week being put out on Saturday night because I put a community post up recently asking you if you had any questions specifically for me, either about writing, marketing, or anything else, or anything to do with my own career as an author as well. And I said if I got 3 questions, I would make a video. And I actually got 1, 3, 4.5. So I count that as a win. Thank you so much for the people who left comments either on my videos or on my community post. So let's dive in. And the first one I'm going to do, and I am sending apologies as I say it, because I did say to this gentleman that I would probably not be able to pronounce his word correctly. And I actually went onto his YouTube channel to see how he pronounces it himself because it is Swedish. But I believe it is Birja Dark Fantasy Author. So thank you so much for the comments you've been leaving on my videos. I truly appreciate it. But you were asking me about my experience with paid advertising, and you had mentioned Amazon ads. Now, I have in the past had paid for Amazon ads, Facebook ads, and BookBub ads. And I have also paid for blog promotion, and what else have I done? I think that's about it in paid advertising sources. So I'll start with Amazon because that was the one that you had mentioned. Out of the two, between Amazon and Facebook, I would say that Amazon was the most effective. And the reason why I say that is because you are able to niche down on keywords. So keeping your cost per click low because you're driving very specified, specific niche, sub-niche, targets is what you're looking for. And what I also liked about Amazon ads is that, well, one, it was really interesting, it was really easy to set up. And the second thing that I appreciated was that you were allowed to set your own budget per day and for the campaign. And you were also able to see how many click-throughs and actual sales you got from your advertising dollars spent. Now, was it cost effective? I think I spent like maybe $100, say, for example, and I'm just pulling that figure out of the air. I know it was around $100, and I got back maybe 120. So whether you consider that cost effective or not, I'm not sure. I think the other thing that might be more useful especially if you're a new author starting out, is rather than pay for ads, to go in and use the KU system and put your book on Kindle Unlimited for 3 months and then take advantage of their free days. And you are able to promote your book then. I believe Amazon promotes it for you on 5 separate days. Now, I've got to admit, I don't know 100% how that works because I don't use KU. However, I have heard that it has been effective for some people. But as far as cost per click, I think if you were going to use any form of advertising at all, then you need to, paid advertising, you need to know your niche, be able to zero in on that niche, set a very limited budget, and test out different ads that you do. Because honestly, you do not want, it is possible to throw away $100 easily and not get a single sale. And none of us want that. And a lot of that has got to do with how you target the keywords and the audiences that you're looking for on Amazon. So that would be the way that I would mention, that's what I would mention about that. Now, as I say, I have also tried Facebook advertising. That was probably 2 or 3 years ago. And even though I thought I was being very specific about the type of users I wanted to see my ad, I got so much pushback, like negative pushback against me on my posts that were actually ads. They were clearly being shown to the wrong people. And the pushback I found a little bit concerning. I will also say I stopped and I actually pulled all my payment information off of Facebook. Now, I don't know how this happened because as I've talked about before, I have a Facebook page, I have a Facebook profile, and I have my Facebook group. And I'm also a member of lots and lots of different groups, whatever, but that's what I have. But somehow, under the Meta Business Suite that you have, if you have an official author page, which I do, yeah, somehow somebody was able to hack it. And I didn't find out until I woke up to a random email from Facebook saying, yeah, the bill of $400 a USD is still waiting to be paid. And we've been trying to source it from your account. And I was broke in that account. Thank goodness for that. So I went in and saw that somehow there was a completely different administrator on my account. It had nothing to do with me at all. The adverts that were there had nothing to do with me at all. It was some sort of travel scam or something, so I understand. So thank goodness they weren't actually putting those ads out under my name. They were putting them out under their own, but how the heck did they get into my account? And I still haven't found that out. I immediately removed my payment methods from Facebook. And then I wrote to them and told them that I would not be paying those ads because they weren't me. And how the heck did they get in my account in the first place? Because it actually happened about 3 times. So now I won't. I don't care if Facebook becomes the mecca for all advertising for book promotion anywhere. I will not do it because I do not believe that site is safe to have your pay details in there. So yeah, I just won't. And that's my personal thing. Your results, of course, would vary. And the final thing I've tried is BookBub. I have heard of a number of authors who have been very successful with BookBub. That wasn't my experience, and I'm going to put that down to it being my genre. I think if you have a genre that's very popular, perhaps more mainstream than mine, then definitely I would think that it would be worth giving BookBub a go. Again, actually the issue with that is that when you're in more of the mainstream genres, the cost to put out an ad is that much higher, and they won't always accept your book to do the advertising. So that might be something you want to consider down the track, just to give it a try. But definitely don't use money you need for anything else, because honestly, I saw no notable spike in sales when my BookBub ad went out, or over the, say, 2 or 3 days afterwards when people might realistically see it. So that was my experience. So actually, out of any of them, Amazon was probably the best. But even then, I would definitely use small budgets. I would use very targeted keywords and like books you want to be associated with. And at least then you have a better chance of reaching your market. And at least you can see if it's actually working. Try with $10, try with 20, and just see how you get on that way. I will note one more thing, though, which did happen to me quite a while back in my career. I think it must have been, like 2017, 2018, something like that. I put out a book called The Passion Punched King, and Amazon refused to advertise it. They would let me like I had a sales page. It was on Amazon. My readers could buy it, but they disapproved of the image used, and they disapproved of the title. And yeah, they absolutely refused to advertise it. So that was quite interesting. Yeah, so just keep an eye out on that if you're writing things that, again, perhaps aren't quite so mainstream. The thing is I got that cover from a photographer that I have bought model photos of before, Paul-Henri Serres, in a photographer. I believe he's in, is he in Canada, or is he, I'm not sure. I think it might be. I'm not sure. But he is a fantastic photographer. And the image that he had, I just had to have it for my book. And it wasn't obscene. It wasn't lewd. But apparently a combination of that plus the title. Yeah. There are some things Amazon won't promote. So keep that in mind as well. Now, so thank you so much, Birya. I know I probably haven't said that correctly, but I truly do appreciate your comments too. You always make me smile, so thank you. Now, moving on from advertising, Marie Payne writes, she put her comment on the community post, questions on the community post, and she wanted to know how I chose my genre. That was her first question. She asked me 2 questions, and thank you again for both of them. My genre, I started writing paranormal romances back in 2013, and I first started publishing in 2014. And the reason was very multifaceted. I have been a gay ally since the 1980s. Yes, I know. I don't look that old, actually. Yes, I do. But yeah, I've been a gay ally since the 80s. And I wasn't aware until Kindle came out, because, yes, I'm one of those people who remember life before Kindle, that you could actually read books. Because living in rural New Zealand, there wasn't a lot of exposure to sort of like large libraries or places like that would have them. And so I came across some when I was doing a search when I had my first Kindle, and came across some, and I started reading authors like Stormy Glenn, and who else did I read? There was, there was Charlie Richards, and I'm trying to think, Lucy Lennox. There was there's like the bigger names in my field now. And I remember thinking, particularly with Stormy and Charlie's books, and yeah, I can call them by their first names because I now talk to them on Facebook. So yes, we have been friends for some years. But the thing is that when I would read their stories, they were being published by a small small publishing house. So they had very fixed word counts. And what was happening was they were building up these beautiful stories, amazing stories and things like that. And then, boom, all of a sudden, like in that last tenth or so of the book, the ending always felt really rushed to me. And I always wondered what happened to those characters afterwards. And that's what started my what if. Now, I personally prefer to read stories because I find they are, particularly paranormal ones, because there's not as much emotional game playing as there may be in contemporary romance, typical MF stories and that sort of thing. I had gotten to that point in my life. I was on the verge of a divorce when I started writing. My marriage was already, had been falling down the tubes for about 2 years. And the last thing I wanted to do was read about, happy male-female couples doing all these things and these perky women. And, and I felt 20 pounds overweight and absolutely horrible. And I thought, wow, there are actually love stories for men. Yes, this is me. This I can get behind. This is what I want. And every single book I have written since then has been with the themes of acceptance, unconditional love, and that it's just basically, yeah, love is a journey. And I like my characters to take us along the way. So that's why I do. I'm not sure if that's if that's very clear for you, because it's very hard for me to actually pinpoint. It's a whole range of different things, and a really strong desire to want to see that who you love doesn't determine how you're accepted in society. Provided you're adults, who cares? But anyway, that's my little rant on that. But the other thing Marie asked was, how long does it take me to finish a book from idea to publication? Now, that has changed recently. Typically, what would happen is I would have an idea, or I'm having a follow-on from a series or whatever else, and I would start writing, and the writing process would typically take me 3 to 4 weeks. And I'm writing a story of 50 to 60,000 words long. And yeah, so I was doing, roughly 3,000 words a day, which is quite the norm for me. And it was like that for a very long time. I got into that habit from when I was doing NaNoWriMo, which is when I first started writing in NaNoWriMo 2013. So I got into that habit of the 3,000 words a day, every day. You can crank out 50 to 60,000 words in, as I say, 3 to 4 weeks as a rule. And then what happens after that is my book goes to my editor. And as you know, I now have 2 editors, and they both generally get me the book back from within a week. During that week, while I'm waiting for the edits to come back, I am taking care of things like the cover and the blurb and the file formatting and everything else, pulling out teasers for graphics, promotional graphics, and all that sort of thing is done in the week while I'm waiting for my edits to come back. Then when my edits come back, that is usually 6 to 8 hours of absolutely hell doing those edits. I hate editing. However, I just sit down and I'll just get it done in a day, because my editors use track changes in Word. So it's a case of, and I don't use the document they've sent me back with the track changes. I have my own fresh copy of my final draft up on the screen. And so I'm going through, and because I don't want to just go through and accept. Sometimes editors suggest things to you and you don't agree, and you don't have to. For example, I've got edits come back that I should be doing today, but I'm actually doing everything else but at the moment, because I really don't want to sit on my butt and edit for the next 8 hours. But my editor mentioned the way I spelled Griffin was unusual, because I spelt it with a YPH instead of 2 I and 2 Fs. And I explained to her why I had done it. And she had told me that it wasn't Merriam-Webster approved, but it is actually, it is an acceptable spelling of the word Griffin. And she was simply asking for consistency's sake. She hadn't changed anything in the document regarding that. It was just something she noticed, checked up on for me, and then came back and said, well, hey, look, you might want to do it the other way. And when I explained to her, I wrote back and explained why I didn't. She was fine. She just said, I just wanted to know for continuity. But yeah, so she'll leave little comments. There's commas taken out, commas put in. I'm shocking with commas, and all that sort of thing. So anyway, I do that. And then I will usually put the book out. I will, I've done everything by then. By the time the edits are done, everything else is finished. I make a print version of the file. So I have a paper, I have an ebook version of the file and then a print version of the file. And I go ahead and upload them to Amazon. and then I upload them to Draft2Digital, and usually within about 2 or 3 hours, Amazon has approved the book and it's live for sale. So the whole process probably takes about, I'm going to say, a month to 6 weeks. And that was my standard for a long time, well over 10 years I was doing that. Now, at the moment, the books I'm writing at the moment, and you notice plural, I'm currently writing 3 books at the moment. But what I'm doing is I'm finding that by writing 2 books at the same time under my author name means I get them done probably within about 6 weeks to 2 months. But then I've got, I don't know why, it's just in my head, it seems like a more efficient way of doing it. I really sat down and knuckled hard at the beginning of the year, really knuckled into my writing at the beginning of the year. So as I say, at the moment, I am recording this on the 28th of June. I have my July, my August, and my September releases all ready to go. They're already done. So the 2 books I'm writing now are for October and November, and this is actually why I'm having a bit of a break. But generally, that's how long it would take. If you were dedicated, if you don't really have much of a life like me, if you are really passionate about what you do, again, like me, it is possible to put out a book a month, absolutely every month, because, yeah, that's all I do. And that's why I have out, on average, between 10 and 14 books out a year. Although just recently then I've also been doing collabs as well, which is actually a lot easier because you're just writing like a chapter a week and then you send it back and then they write the chapter and send it back and all this sort of thing. And that's quite fun too. I've done quite a few books like that, in particular with JP Sale, who is another wonderful author, and the MM and others. I think she writes contemporary as well. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. But hopefully that's explained my process a bit clearer. Yeah, and if you have any more questions about that, then please definitely ask. And finally, we had a comment from Zoe, who was also on the community post, I believe. And she just wanted to know, she had said that because I write predominantly in a male POV, how do I get into that mindset? And Zoe, thank you so much for being very polite. You said, I think you said something about a mature middle-aged woman or something else like that. Yeah, I'll be 64 in September. So I'm definitely cruising towards the older sphere of more mature. And then they wanted to know, did it come naturally? And the sort of the other half part offshoot of that question was, have I ever been criticized for getting it wrong or unrealistic? Now, first of all, I write 100% in male POV. I use, for all of my stories, they are written in dual, my 2 main characters, so dual POV, third person, past tense, and all of my books are written that way. It's just something I'm comfortable with. It's just that method of writing that I just enjoy writing that style. I enjoy reading that sort of POV, and so I enjoy writing it too. And I suppose, I think it just comes from, actually, I thought about this question and I thought, well, I've been around a lot of men. I've had 3 husbands. I have sons. I guess it's a case of paying attention. I think I look more, not so much for what I would call masculine traits, but more personality traits. For example, I have written characters who are on the autism spectrum. I have written characters who are, to me, they're reminiscent of the jocks and the idiots that I remember when I was young. You know, I've written quite a wide variety of characters. Living in rural New Zealand for a lot of the part too, a lot of the men around me were all quite common in the way they, you know, they spoke in shorter sentences. They weren't inclined to share their feelings. I have had a couple of characters like that where I've quite literally wanted to reach into the page and shake the living daylights out of them, because they just won't communicate. But that's kind of what you're writing. I'm not going to say I don't know that I'm writing men, because I do. My men are very definitely men. But I guess I look at more, not so much that what they, yeah, it's really hard to explain. Maybe it does just come naturally. Who knows? But I never thought twice about doing it. As I say, I have been around men all of my life, a variety of men, lots of men from lots of different circumstances, from business situations. You know, I used to be a taxi driver there at one point. I used to do the night shift taxi driving in Christchurch there. Heavens, back before I had my kids. And yeah, that was interesting. You meet a lot of different people doing that. And I think that's what it is. I've worked in a lot of social situations. I listen to a lot of conversations. When I was young adult, and, we would go to parties and things like that, I was the one sitting in the corner watching everybody else get drunk, because I actually have quite a control thing. I will not let myself get completely off my face. I feel that's unsafe, so I don't do it. But I was the one that my friends used to ring up in the morning and be like, "What did you do? What did I do? What did I do?" And I could tell them, because I was the only one who remembered. And I think that's like part of it. Having always sort of spent a time in my, most of my life has been spent watching different communication styles in both body language and in dialogue used. And yeah, I guess that just comes out in my books. I do find it easier to write men. I really do. Although in the book I have out at the moment, The Scarred Fae, I've been getting a lot of lovely feedback from Gabby, who is one of my main characters, Senan. It's his best friend. And she is based on one of my best friends who lives down the line. And she came across the page beautifully. Even though she didn't have a POV, she was definitely dominating the pages when she was on them. But with regards to, have I ever been criticized for getting things wrong? No. But that came from one of the biggest qualms about women writing MM stories, or MMM, or MMMMMMMM stories, has been that they didn't understand how male biology worked. And I'm thinking of putting this as politely as I can. The thing is the internet is a huge icebreaker in that respect. You can learn a lot about how people interact with each other on an intimate basis. But that is what I've seen as the biggest complaint against women writing men, is that when it comes to bedroom scenes, they are not dealing with the mechanics and the biology that goes on behind male intimacy. And the thing is I have two words for that, and that's called, it's more than two words, because it's, have you seen my bookshelf? There's plenty of books on the topic. There are also very educational videos online, and I did I mention I live alone so I can watch these sorts of things without having somebody worry about my browser history? I did point out to my children that when I go, they need to just basically shut down my computer and burn it completely because, yeah, there's just some things my children just shouldn't see that I have. But I think apart from that, a lot of my story is more, they're more dialogue, communication things, as I've mentioned before. And the only other thing is when I do action scenes, which I will admit is rarely, when I do them, I will usually go and try and watch something online to give me an idea, or I will talk to one of my sons, or I will do something like that. So I'm getting an idea of, like, if, for example, that was possible. You know, I think I wrote one scene where one smaller guy was being attacked by two larger people, and he was very athletic. And so I think I remember having a conversation with my middle son about, well, if he flung himself up, or if he got grabbed from behind, but then kicked his legs up, would he be able to reach around this other guy's neck who was coming in to get him, like, and then, like, basically flip off him, this sort of thing. So yeah, I do think about those things. So hopefully that answers your question. I have obviously, even though I'm not monetized on YouTube, I still don't want to have my video taken down either. Otherwise, I would have been a lot more blunt about it. But no, as a rule, there is more when I have, as I say, I've said in other videos, I get pulled up more for using wrong words, such as the difference between couch and settee, or living room and lounge, than I do for the way my men act and behave with each other and other people. So hopefully that helps. But that is about it for us today. Heavens, it's a half-an-hour video. I might try and see if I can put in timestamps so that you don't have to watch the whole thing through. I probably should have taken a few more notes and not been quite so rambly, but if you did enjoy this, would you please leave a like below just so I can see, because I'd like to do this sort of thing about once a month. It's a way of, I'm more than happy to share about myself and my process, because I hope along the way that we build a community here of writers, whether you're new or you've been writing for years or whatever else. And oh, and Zoe, incidentally, the only reason why I didn't use your full name was because I wasn't sure. It didn't come up under my community post what your full name was. So I was trying to be, yeah, I wasn't sure if you wanted me to use it, but I definitely appreciate your questions. There are some things, and I think all of us, authors are like that. We just do things, and then someone turns around and asks us why. And it's like, yeah, okay. But it is really interesting to think about, and it is also really interesting to discuss. So thank you all so much for joining me over the weekend. My next long form video will be out on Monday. As I say, I usually put out videos on Monday and Thursdays. I have been toying with the idea of doing some writing sprints, but I will see, because at the moment I have been on more of a writing holiday. So perhaps when I'm back into things a bit more vividly or actively, I will perhaps look at doing some writing sprints on a Saturday night or something like that. Maybe do a Saturday Night Live or something, if anybody was interested. But at the moment, I have got some crafting that is waiting for me. And so I will get this video done and up. Thank you all so much for your questions and for showing me that it is possible. You know, we're starting a little community. I'd really love to see it grow. So if you did enjoy this, please hit the like and subscribe button. And until next time, my friends, enjoy your weekend. Bye.